Hi folks, welcome to your latest mwis planning outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. We're sticking with a pattern that's coming in off the Atlantic in the next week or so, and that will continue to bring some spells of warm and humid air which will plague western mountains with some low cloud and some drizzle once again in the days ahead. But there'll also be some brighter and some fresher days as cooler air just topples in at times. And into the mix, there's the risk of something thundery just coming up from the south after the middle of the week. It's not all plain sailing in terms of summer weather. Saturday is a pretty good day in many respects. We've still got a westerly breeze which will be strongest across northern Scottish mountains, and that breeze will be there further south as well, but into Wales and the South Pennines mostly very light winds. Some banks of low cloud just around some western hills, but more broken up than in recent days. Some sunshine coming through pretty well, but west and northwest Scotland around the coast could just be rather stuck with some cloud covering the hills for much of the day. And as a warm front just drifts in from the Atlantic later, a greater risk, particularly later in the day, that fills in more extensively across the west coast of Scotland with low cloud to the lowest slopes. Now by Sunday that more humid air mass has been drawn more extensively across the country, so once again west and northwest Scotland in particular stuck with a lot of low cloud, drizzly rain for much of the day. Better conditions further eastwards across the Highlands, although still a fairly cloudy picture. A windier day too across much of the Scottish mountains, strongest winds toward the north and the northwest near to gale force across the higher mountains, and breezy across northern England as well, but light winds and under the centre of high pressure for Wales and the South Pennines. We may just find that there's some low cloud and sea fog around the Irish Sea which laps in to some of the western coastal hills around Cumbria. The extent of that open to some question, but it is a rather humid air mass, so there's scope for this murky condition to develop once again. Generally for much of Wales I suspect and much of the Pennines it's a sunny and very warm day, temperatures in the valleys into the mid-20s by the afternoon. Eastern Scotland too doing well for being very warm too. Now as a cold front drifts southeastwards into Monday, that humid air gets drawn out of the way and we go into a fresher westerly airflow across northern Britain that then will lower the humidity and will lift the cloud bases. So some breaks to higher slopes, but with some drizzly showers coming in off the Atlantic, western coastal areas in Scotland may still see the higher tops capped for a good part of the day. Better cloud breaks toward the east, and some cloud breaks forming across the Lake District too, and we may just find that cloud is a bit more stubborn across the higher Welsh mountains. Some rain and drizzle associated with that front for a time, more or less fizzling out, not a great deal left on it, but maybe just some dampness sinking southwards across northern England into Wales for a spell. Strongest winds very much again across the northern half of Britain as a whole. Northern Scotland still a rather blustery day with the risk of gales on the highest tops. Now Tuesday's looking an optimistic day as the next ridge of high pressure builds through before the next fronts try and sweep in from the Atlantic. So with relatively low humidity at this stage, we can expect cloud to be well up, well broken to the higher tops. Many mountains may well be clear. Again, the far west coast of Scotland perhaps just struggling a little bit more, but some sunshine and pleasant temperatures and winds generally lighter, but just watch for a strengthening south-southwesterly across western Scotland. Now, it's going to become quite a tangled, complicated story into the middle of the week as high pressure pushes out to the east. We've got a deeper area of low pressure lying to the northwest, a cold front drifting through in amongst it all with some warm and humid air ahead of that and some cooler, fresher conditions behind it. Now the front itself may just be a general zone of cloud and some patchy rain and drizzle. It may be a fairly weak feature, but it could just still plague the hills and mountains with some low cloud for a good few hours. Western Scotland, a few showers coming in behind that, mostly squibs of things just coming into the west coast, a few drifting eastwards with time. We're watching towards the Bay of Biscay for some destabilisation there as warm, humid air gets to work, and increasing risk of some thunderstorms developing perhaps into Wednesday evening and night and further onwards into Thursday. The timing and detail by this stage with all this action going on is going to be quite tricky, so that's the general plan. We'll see how things develop in the days going forwards. What I'll do is just run this sequence on as we go into Wednesday evening and night. This is in 6-hour time steps, and you can just see the thundery blobs that are erupting across Europe at this stage and trying to get into the south of Britain. They may not really interfere with the mountain regions at this stage, but just watching for that getting into Wales, maybe into the Peak District by Wednesday evening too. And overnight into Thursday, the indication then that little thundery trough runs north and northeastwards, and by the time we get to Thursday, the risk of something being across the eastern side of Scotland, northeast England, but the energy of that system perhaps further out into the North Sea. It could well just lead to us being in a relatively fresh and showery regime to the end of the week, where it's a westerly wind, the warm and humid air is taken away eastwards towards Scandinavia, and we're just back into a general Atlantic westerly with some sunshine, some showers, lower humidity and some cloud breaks to higher top. Temperatures then relatively fresh at this stage. We're just though, I think, in the idea of a rather mixed, perhaps unsettled pattern as pressure stays fairly low over the North Atlantic, maybe just generating some heavier showers a bit more widely, perhaps by the end of the week and into the weekend. It's going to be very tricky at this stage to get any sort of detail out of things, but the general idea from the modelling in a week or so's time is that we're just beneath lower pressure on balance. This is the average, the pressure anomaly for the 7 days as a whole, 18th through 24th of June. The green colours indicating lower than average pressures around our part of the world, neatly sandwiched between two quite strong zones of high pressure. I think we've got to go through a little poorer spell where it's a blip of more unsettled, showery, perhaps thundery conditions at times in there. Some places may get away still with a few days of mainly dry weather and escaping all of that, so not to write things off altogether, but just I think that bit more unsettled over a few days. Indications further ahead suggest that the zones of higher pressure begin to build back in and we go into something better and quieter and more settled as we head into the later stages of June. A bit of a mixture then over the next week or so. Stay up to date with all your local details on our website. That's been your Planning Outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.